A murder mystery right out of the FBI files. It starts with a woman found dead at dawn in a canoe on a treacherous part of the Long Island Sound. The story's fiction, but it's from the mind of a man who tracked criminals for a career and draws on his own experience. Westport, the latest novel by former FBI Director James Comey, who joins me now. There's obviously also a lot to ask about today when it comes to former President Trump and some recent comments from Hillary Clinton. But first, the book. Not to give too much away of the suspense, but the novel centers on the character Nora Carlton, who had worked at a U.S. attorney's before landing a job at a hedge fund. She struggles to clear her name, having to turn to some shady characters, having to deal with personal slanders, of course, is something that you have some experience in. Was this cathartic for you?
Yeah, in a way, because I'm able to go back to things I did in my career, but also bring it to the current day, because Nora is inspired by my children, especially my oldest, who's a federal prosecutor. So I can close my eyes and picture her and write her in situations that I lived through. So it is pretty great for me.
So there's a lot of political intrigue in your life. What about this G-Man experience of your day when you were just an FBI agent? I mean, did you draw on murders and criminal investigations, obviously fictionalizing them, et cetera, but did you draw on that?
Yes, and I haven't yet written about anything in Washington. It's a little too icky for me at this point. Maybe a few years down the road I can get to it, but I've tried to draw on real cases, real characters, and fictionalize them, but bring readers inside the real world of that work.
One last thing, and then I have to turn to the news. So you and I were talking about, because I've written some novels too. Mine have taken place in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Yours take place today.
Yeah.
And I told you, you said that you thought that it sounded more challenging for me. And I'm telling you, it's actually better to not have a drama where you're saying, well, why didn't he just call him on his cell phone? Or why didn't she just Google it and find out he's a mass murderer? That made it easier for me. And then also, once I realized how much more difficult technology makes writing about drama today, that now you'll understand why so many characters in movies and TV shows today end up in the middle of the desert and don't have any cell for service, because it really is a problem. Did you find that problematic at all, writing your dramas, because you're in a world where you can just call the person or just Google them, or no?
My challenge was being cool enough. I'm not a particularly cool person, so I needed my children especially to tell me that people don't really talk that way these days, and they would say something is, Dad, that's cringe what you wrote. And actually, I had to look that up. But so I'm trying to be current, and it poses its own challenges.
All right, that's good. It's good to have editors, and kids can be the toughest.
Yes, they can.
Let's turn to the news of the day. The jury's deliberating right now if Donald Trump broke the law. 34 counts. Do you think, I don't know how much you've been following this, but do you think, based on what you know, that the prosecution has made the case beyond a reasonable doubt?
I do. I've tried a lot of jury cases, and I know you can't fully tell, even if you've been in the courtroom the whole time, but it seems to me a very strong case. I think a high likelihood of conviction, some likelihood of a hung jury, almost zero of an acquittal.
There's this other criminal case down in Florida having to do with the classified documents. That's probably a matter you know something about. I'm sure you dealt with classified documents.
A lot.
Yeah. Both in the Justice Department and then separately in the FBI. Judge Cannon yesterday denied the special counsel's request for a gag order to limit the former president's ability to criticize the FBI. This has to do with, for people at home, I know you know, Donald Trump suggesting that when the FBI agents had their instructions, that there was some sort of assassination plot. He didn't go that far, but some of his supporters did. In any case, it was fairly standard language, the same language used when they looked into President Biden's house and office, is my understanding. What's your reaction to the ruling and also to what he said about FBI agents?
Well, what he was reacting to is something, as you said, that's in every FBI ops order. It's boilerplate, standard language. His interpretation of it was so crazy and frankly dark that if you put it in your novel, it'd be stricken by your editor because it's so nuts. What's going on down in Florida, it's hard for me to understand from the outside. The judge denied the application, I think, based on the failure of the government to adequately confer in advance with opposing counsel. And so I don't know that case. That case should have been tried long ago. It's not. I don't want to attribute it to malign intention by the judge. It's most likely inexperience and incompetence.
What do you think about the way that the U.S. Supreme Court has handled the request for a hearing on immunity? I know a lot of people who want Jack Smith's trial on January 6th to go forward are very frustrated that there doesn't seem to be any expedited way that they're going about hearing the president's arguments, which some people think like that should have been heard a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't think they should be that frustrated. The court is moving, for the court, unusually fast, and they have to answer this question. It's easy to say there's no absolute immunity, but they need to define the scope of immunity. If, God forbid, Joe Biden loses in November, we're going to want to know what is the scope of a president's immunity against later criminal prosecution.
Hillary Clinton recently gave an interview to the New York Times. She reflected on why some women did not support her in 2016, how Democrats failed to protect abortion rights adequately. She again partially blamed you for her defeat, for reopening the investigation into her email server, holding the press conference where you called her extremely careless without any formal criminal charges. She told the Times, quote, "Once he did that to me, the people, the voters who left me were women. They left me because they just couldn't take a risk on me because as a woman, I'm supposed to be perfect. They were willing to take a risk on Trump, who had a long list of, let's call them flaws to illustrate his imperfection, because he was a man, and they could envision a man as president and commander-in-chief." What did you think? What was your response?
We were never trying to do anything to either of the candidates in 2016. We regretted being involved. We were just trying to do the right thing, given the facts that landed on us.
And what would you say to Hillary Clinton if she were here right now? I mean, do you feel any regret, or you think she's the one that made the decisions to do X, Y, Z?
I regret being involved, but I didn't put 300,000 of her emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop that the FBI then had to look at. And so I hated the situation, but I bear her no ill will. And I get the pain she feels, I'm sure, about 2016. I hope we had nothing to do with the outcome, but we were just trying to do the right thing. And I still think we did the right thing.
All right. James Comey, former FBI director and author of the brand new novel, Westport, available in stores now. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to be with you.
It's good to see you, as always.
Yeah, you too.